My husband was known as an ascetic-like man. For 3 years of our secret marriage, he remained distant and indifferent toward me, never once showing concern, until the video of him passionately kissing another woman inside a car went viral. Only then did I realize he, too, had a side where he couldn't suppress his emotions. Just not for me. Later, that woman came to my door to provoke me. During the struggle, I fell down the stairs, went into premature labor, and suffered severe hemorrhaging. That night, rumors spread wildly among high society, saying that the ascetic-like man had stepped down from his pedestal, standing in the endless wind and snow, kowtowing step by step to pray for a safety charm for me. But I handed him a divorce ruling instead. Blood trickled down from his temple, his voice trembling. "Don't divorce me, the child needs a father." From his palm, I slowly withdrew my hand. "No need. I can keep the child and cut the father out." Chapter 1. 10 minutes before the video of Orson and Elizabeth kissing inside the car was exposed, I was holding a press conference, announcing my temporary withdrawal from the entertainment industry. I had just won the Best Actress award last month, so my sudden decision to step away at the peak of my career caused an uproar. Countless microphones were thrust toward me. "Best Actress Eulalia, could you share the reason for your retirement? Paparazzi spotted you at an obstetrics clinic before. Is the pregnancy rumor true? Who is the father of the child?" I lifted my chin, smiling at the cameras, one hand resting on my slightly rounded belly, about to answer them one by one, when suddenly, someone gasped, "Quick! Check the trending topics, Elizabeth's relationship just got exposed." My eyelid twitched slightly, the surroundings turned chaotic. The interview interrupted. My manager pulled me backstage and handed me her phone. The trending post was a short video, only a few seconds long. A rainy night, the window of a Maybach half open. Elizabeth, dressed in a soft ink green cheapao, leaned delicately into a man's arms, offering her lips in a kiss. A hand wrapped with smooth, round Buddhist prayer beads circled her slender waist. The atmosphere was intimate, almost intoxicating. Hashtag cheapao beauty and ascetic man kissing in car. Hashtag Elizabeth Orson so sweet. Hashtag he was ascetic but broke his restraint only for her. Hashtag. These trending tags completely overshadowed the news of my retirement, shooting straight into the top 3 of the entertainment charts. My manager, Laura, looked furious as she cursed. "That Elizabeth, stealing your endorsements and resources wasn't enough. Now she even wants to steal your spotlight." She lit a cigarette, speaking without restraint in her anger. "Eulalia, isn't your husband also some elite rich heir? Get him to step in and warn Elizabeth." I refused to believe she'd still dare to be this arrogant. I lowered my head, remaining silent, until the phone screen dimmed automatically, reflecting a pale, lifeless face. Only then did I manage to squeeze out a sentence from my throat. "My husband is Orson." With a soft clack, the cigarette slipped from Lara's fingers and fell to the ground. Chapter 2. Very few people in the industry knew that I was Orson's wife. The Hahn family believed I had no sense of shame, that I had taken the initiative to seduce Orson Hahn, so they concealed the marriage from the public. But that wasn't the truth. 3 years ago, I was invited to attend an event. After it ended, an investor came over to offer me a drink, completely off guard. I drank a glass of champagne that had been laced with an aphrodisiac. When they tried to take me to a hotel, I dug my nails hard into my palm and used every ounce of strength to break free from the investor's grip. Stumbling, I pushed open the half-closed door next door. Help me." I curled up in the corner, soft whimpers escaping my lips. The man who walked out of the bathroom was slightly drunk. He looked me up and down a few times, then suddenly pulled me into his arms. Finally decided to come back. His heated breath brushed against my ear. Before I could even speak, his lips came down on mine. The next day, daylight flooded the room. I finally saw the man's face clearly. Orson Hahn, the heir of the Hahn Group, known as an ascetic-like man, cold by nature, famously disciplined and restrained. Yet last night, he had been completely unrestrained. I gathered my scattered clothes and fled in a panic. I thought it was just a fleeting encounter, that our paths would never cross again. But that very afternoon, Orson appeared at my doorstep. The first thing he said was, "Miss Eulalia, I'm sorry, I drank too much last night." He asked for my bank account number and transferred $5 million into it. I can take responsibility for you. This will be the bride price for marrying you. On the day we registered our marriage, I asked him why he had decided to marry me. He said the Han family had strict values. If a man took a girl's chastity, he should take responsibility. I curved my lips into a faint smile, thinking Orson was probably a good man. Marrying him didn't seem like a bad choice. Unfortunately, only at this moment did I finally understand. Orson married me out of guilt. I looked too much like Elizabeth. In his drunken state, he mistook me for her, and that's how that absurd night happened. Chapter 3. Pulling myself out of those memories. I blinked, my eyes stinging. I picked up the cigarette Laura had dropped on the floor, and together with the pregnancy test report from my pocket, threw them into the trash. Laura hurriedly tried to stop me. What are you doing? Aren't you going to tell Orson you're pregnant? I didn't answer. My gaze shifted to my phone screen, which suddenly lit up. Elizabeth was being interviewed by the media. She was still wearing a cheapao, and on her fair, slender wrist was now an extra string of sandalwood prayer beads. I recognized them immediately. They were Orson's. I had heard they were a keepsake left behind by his mother, meant to be given one day to the person he would spend his life with. I had once jokingly asked him for them, only to be coldly refused. And now, they were on Elizabeth's wrist. A mocking smile curled at my lips. Elizabeth smiled sweetly at the camera, absent-mindedly toying with the beads. The reporter asked a question they already knew the answer to. Miss Elizabeth, were these given to you by Mr. Han? Yes. By him. Elizabeth bit her lip, putting on a shy, girlish expression. But Orson and I are just friends right now. Friends who have kissed. She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. It's my fault for being too headstrong when I was younger. After our argument, I left the country without even saying goodbye to study acting. Dear friends in the media, please help me persuade Orson. Tell him not to be angry with me anymore. We've already kissed. Elizabeth's voice grew softer and softer, her eyes reddening, like a wronged little rabbit. Pitiful, endearing. And so, fans and media alike began to plead on her behalf. Mr. Han, please forgive Elizabeth. You two are perfect for each other. Laura was so furious beside me that she started cursing. Damn it. Shameless. Does she not know Orson is already married? Of course Elizabeth knew. The first film she took after returning to the country was one where she co-starred with me. One day, after filming wrapped and I returned to the hotel, she stopped me. Mrs. Han, how's married life treating you? I didn't understand what she meant and was about to ask, but she gave me a meaningful smile and walked away. That same night, Orson, who had always been distant and indifferent, never caring about me, came to the set to see me for the first time. The room wasn't well soundproofed. I bit down on my lip. Orson brushed the ends of my hair, his voice low and coaxing. Wife, be good. Open your mouth. In 3 years of our secret marriage, it was the first time he had ever called me wife. I was overwhelmed with joy, thinking he had finally started to accept me. But I hadn't noticed that Elizabeth was staying right next door. He came to find me just to provoke her. Orson had never liked me. By the time I realized that, I was already 3 months pregnant. I had planned to wait until after the press conference to go find Orson and tell him he was going to be a father. But that video hit the trending charts first, completely exposing the truth behind this marriage. Before, I thought Orson was just cold, that he simply never showed emotions when facing me. Only today did I realize he was capable of uncontrollable passion. Just not for me. Suddenly, these past 3 years felt like a joke. Tears struggled to spill out, ruining my carefully done makeup. Through my blurred vision, I saw a pair of polished leather shoes appear. Orson stood there, hands in his pockets, looking down at me from above, his voice devoid of any emotion. Eulalia, you know everything now. I knew why he married me, and I knew why he had always been so indifferent toward me. I wiped away my tears, stood up, and raised my hand to slap him across the face. Orson, you're such a bastard. Chapter 4. I scheduled an abortion for a week later. Other than Laura, I didn't tell anyone, including Orson. However, on the day of the surgery, he blocked me in the obstetrics corridor. Orson stared at me for a few seconds. Then his gaze slowly shifted to my stomach. In a cold voice, he asked, "Why didn't you tell me you were pregnant?" I found it almost laughable. Why should I tell you? I'm the child's father. Still that indifferent tone. No emotion, just stating a fact. A sudden surge of anger rose within me, and I snapped back. A cheating husband thinks he deserves to be a father? That sentence seemed to successfully provoke Orson. His voice dropped as he warned, Eulalia, don't push it. Push it? How was I pushing it? The private hospital had strict security, with no outsiders around. But our argument still caught the attention of a nurse. I didn't want to attract more attention, so I pulled my mask up, only to hear my number being called in the next second. It was my turn. I pushed past Orson and walked into the consultation room. I had barely taken 2 steps when my body suddenly lifted. I was swept up into someone's arms. Have you had enough? Orson looked down at me. If you're angry, take it out on me. The child is innocent. He held me tightly. I couldn't break free. Furious, I pounded against him. Orson, are you insane? If you want a child, divorce me and go have one with Elizabeth. What right do you have to interfere with my decision? Ah. Orson suddenly let go, throwing me into the backseat of the Maybach. The memory of that video, him kissing Elizabeth right here, made my stomach churn violently. Ignoring my pale expression, he grabbed my chin and kissed me. The faint taste of blood spread in the air. He had bitten my lip open for the first time. He lost control because of me. With a cold laugh, he said, Divorce? Eulalia, don't even think about it. At that moment, someone knocked on the car window. Elizabeth stood outside, looking lost and pale. Her voice trembled as she asked softly, Orson, what are you saying? If you're not divorcing her, then what am I? Chapter 5. It was early autumn. A cold rain came without warning. Elizabeth stubbornly waited for an answer, her long hair soaked and clinging to her shoulders. She even sneezed at just the right moment. Orson frowned, about to get out of the car. I knew he felt sorry for her, so I deliberately stopped him. Not divorcing is fine, but you have to agree to 3 conditions. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Elizabeth clench her fists. I smiled. First, make our secret marriage public. Second, have her apologize to me in public and admit she interfered in our marriage. Third, after all that, she must disappear from my life forever. Silence lingered in the air. Orson didn't respond for a long time, while Elizabeth stared at him nervously. Back then, their breakup hadn't been pleasant. Elizabeth had a spoiled temperament. Whenever something displeased her, she would argue, threaten a breakup, or disappear. Orson had coaxed her many times. The last time, she stormed off abroad, and Orson didn't indulge her anymore. Instead, he turned around and married me. 3 years later, she knew Orson still had feelings for her, but she couldn't gauge my place in his heart. She was afraid he would agree to my conditions, afraid he would abandon her for good. I urged him, have you decided? Elizabeth grew anxious, like a rabbit baring its fangs. She shot me a hateful glare. Why should I apologize to you? Haven't you heard, if you're not loved, you're the real third party. So what if you married Orson? In these 3 years, he hasn't forgotten me for a single day. As if to prove her point, she raised her hand and waved it in front of me, flaunting the string of prayer beads. He never even let you wear this family heirloom once. You're a pretty pathetic Mrs. Hahn, aren't you? Her mockery was sharp and piercing. In the past, I probably would have been furious to the point of fainting, but now, I only looked at her calmly, my fingers tightening silently in my pocket, waiting for her to keep talking, to say more. Elizabeth noticed my subtle movement and suddenly pointed at me, shouting, Orson, she's recording! She's recording! Orson lifted his gaze to look at me. I looked back at him. Our eyes met, and only silence remained. After a long hesitation, he finally reached out his hand toward me. The phone. Give it to me. Chapter 6. I didn't move. Elizabeth walked around, pulled open the car door, and roughly searched through my pockets. I was about to slap her, but realized I couldn't move. Orson had grabbed my wrist. In a low voice, he said, I'm sorry, Eulalia. I can't ruin Elizabeth. Her career is on the rise. Elizabeth. The way he said her name, so intimate. He knew better than anyone what kind of public backlash she would face if that recording got out. So he chose to wrong me, just to protect her. After deleting the recording, Elizabeth tossed the phone back at me. It hit my stomach. I gasped sharply in pain. Orson seemed to panic for a moment. A flicker of concern passed through his eyes as he asked, "What's wrong? Are you okay?" Then he turned and snapped at Elizabeth. "Are you blind?" It was probably the first time he had spoken harshly to her. She froze in place, and only after several seconds did tears start falling heavily from her eyes. Utterly wronged. "Orson, I didn't mean to." Orson ignored her. He gently rubbed my lower abdomen and asked again, "Wife, does it hurt here?" A belated term of endearment, belated concern, hypocritical to the extreme. I slapped his hand away, forcing a pale smile. "Don't touch me. It makes me sick." Sick. That word hit Orson hard. His eyes flickered with pain for a brief moment, then gradually turned cold. He stopped paying attention to me, got out of the car decisively, pulled Elizabeth into his arms, and comforted her softly. "Elizabeth, it's my fault. I shouldn't have yelled at you. Don't cry, okay?" Elizabeth cried even harder, but still shot me a provocative smile, as if saying, "See? In the end, he chose me." She leaned weakly against Orson, her breath soft against his ear. "Orson, I know you still have feelings for me. I was wrong back then. I shouldn't have had such a bad temper, arguing and disappearing every time. Don't be angry anymore. Forgive me, okay?" That night when you slept with her, I was next door listening. My heart almost broke. "Don't treat me like that again, all right?" Orson glanced at me, almost deliberately, and took her hand. "All right, I promise." He lifted her up and gently placed her in the passenger seat. I was forced out of the car, standing by the roadside, like a joke. As he drove away, Orson Hahn coldly warned me, "All private hospitals in a city are controlled by the Hahn family. You can try registering at each one, see who dares to perform your surgery." I stood there, frozen. No wonder he had been able to find me here today. "Orson, you're truly despicable." Chapter 7. The rain grew heavier and heavier. I stood by the roadside for half an hour before Laura finally arrived. Seeing me drenched, pale as a ghost, she handed me a dry towel and a cup of hot ginger tea. Laura glanced at me through the rearview mirror, worry written all over her face. "Last time you went to a public hospital for a prenatal checkup, paparazzi caught you. Netizens slammed you for being pregnant out of wedlock. Said you were reckless. Now you switched to a private hospital. But it's still under Orson's watch. Things have gotten this messy. What are you planning to do?" I dried my hair and sank back into the seat, exhausted. I didn't say a word. A breaking update suddenly popped up. Elizabeth had posted, reuniting with my first love from my youth. The attached photo showed two hands interlocked. That long, slender hand, there was no doubt, it was Orson's. The comments were filled with congratulations. "Sis, you finally got back together. Stay together forever." Who understands this? It's like a novel coming to life. And the female lead is even a big star. Get married. Just get married already. I'll move the registry office here myself. One of my haters left a comment under Elizabeth's post. "Ha ha ha. Elizabeth is amazing, winning both career and love." Meanwhile, that overrated Best Actress Eulalia, even her kid's probably some sugar daddy's bastard. So damn cheap. Last month, at the Azure Dragon Film Festival, Elizabeth and I both competed for Best Actress. The judges believed my acting was stronger and awarded it to me. Her fans refused to accept it, claiming there was something shady behind the scenes. They labeled me overrated Best Actress over and over again. My public image plummeted overnight, and Elizabeth took the opportunity to snatch many of my endorsement deals. Before, I didn't bother arguing with her, but now, I suddenly didn't feel like tolerating it anymore. She had crossed the line again and again. If I didn't fight back now, it would be unjustifiable. I opened my photo gallery, found a picture of my marriage certificate, and posted, "Secretly married for 3 years, currently preparing for divorce." A single, concise sentence, but packed with explosive information. It instantly set the trending charts on fire. The direction of public opinion began to shift. Wait, what? Eulalia's husband is Orson? I was just congratulating Elizabeth. Turns out she's the mistress? What reunion? This is clearly cheating during marriage. Disgusting. Don't just blame the woman, the man isn't innocent either. Fooling around with his ex while his wife is pregnant. Scandals everywhere. +1. Acting like some cold, ascetic-like man on the surface, but doing such shady things behind the scenes. I stared at the comment section, a satisfied smile forming, but just a few seconds later, every trending topic was taken down. In its place, the Han Group's official website released a statement, fabricated out of thin air. No names were mentioned, no clarification on who was fabricating what. The response was deliberately ambiguous, yet a massive wave of paid commenters flooded my comment section. LOL. The overrated best actress just got slapped in the face. That marriage certificate is obviously photoshopped. Good thing I didn't fall for it. A nobody's daughter trying to leech off a top-tier wealthy family? Eulalia. Have some shame. Did your sugar daddy dump you so you've gone delusional? Imagining other people's husbands as yours? Bitterness filled my chest. An uncontrollable rage burned inside me, as if it could consume me whole. Just as my rationality was on the verge of collapsing, I received a phone call. Orson's voice sounded in my ear, like poison wrapped in honey. He said, "Wife, this is your punishment. Do you still dare to bring up divorce again, I couldn't understand what he meant. He clearly didn't love me, so why insist on trapping each other in this torment instead of letting go? Chapter 8. I answered calmly, "Yes, I do." Then I hung up on Orson. The consequence was immediate. I was completely torn apart online. My reputation ruined. My career collapsing across the board. That very night, the Han family heard about the marital conflict and ordered me to return to the old residence. The magnificent, gold-adorned reception hall was filled with people. All of them were elders of the Han family. My father stood awkwardly in the corner. His hair was already graying. His skin darkened from years of working under the sun at construction sites, completely out of place here. When he saw me, he gave me an honest, simple smile. He even mouthed silently to comfort me, "Don't be afraid. Dad's got your back." Old Master Han scolded harshly. "Have you forgotten how you entered the Han family? And now you dare to bring up divorce. Looks like your wings have grown strong." He had always believed I schemed my way into Orson's bed to marry into wealth. I glanced at Orson. He lounged lazily on the sofa, making no effort to explain anything for me. My father couldn't stand hearing me being scolded. He stepped in front of me protectively. "My daughter is not that kind of person. Back then, it was your son who came to propose, saying he would take responsibility. That's why I agreed to this marriage. Now it's only been 3 years, and that video is all over the internet. Your son can cheat, but my daughter bringing up divorce becomes a crime?" Old Master Han was momentarily stunned. He was old and didn't follow entertainment news. He probably didn't know about Orson and Elizabeth kissing in the car. I opened the video and played it in front of everyone. Everyone present saw it. Other relatives from the Han family tried to smooth things over. Eulalia. This isn't a big deal. Young masters from wealthy families sometimes just play along in social situations. Besides, you're already pregnant. No one can shake your position. Be sensible. Turn a blind eye, and life can go on as usual. A few casual words, and everything was brushed aside. They were even discussing baby names already. I walked up to Orson. His gaze fell on my stomach. In a calm voice, I asked him softly, "Wouldn't it be better to divorce me and marry the person you truly love?" Orson let out a scoff. "Eulalia, that's enough. Stop playing these games of playing hard to get with me." I stared at him, confused. My eyes blank. He suddenly lost his temper, pulling me into his arms and restraining me, leaning close to my ear. He spoke through gritted teeth. "Who are you pretending for? You're just jealous of Elizabeth, copying how she used to act, making a scene, throwing a tantrum, trying to get me to coax you, right? Fine, I'll coax you." As he spoke, he reached out and pinched my cheek, pretending intimacy. But his tone was utterly perfunctory. "Wife, be good. Stop bringing up divorce. Just focus on giving birth. Whatever you want, I'll give it to you. Is that enough to satisfy you?" I curled my lips and let out a soft laugh. Even now, he still thought I was just throwing a tantrum, thought I was using tricks to get his attention. How ridiculous. Looking at this face that had once made my heart race countless times, I realized for the first time it was nothing special. He was never that remarkable. It was my feelings that had gilded him in gold. Once I understood that, I brushed his hand away coldly and stood up. Old Master Han had already grasped the full situation. Grabbing his cane, he struck Orson Han hard across the back. "You disgraceful thing, deal with that woman outside immediately." The Han family valued reputation. Scandals affected the stock market, naturally. The old master was furious. The living room fell into chaos. Several people rushed forward to intervene. My father pulled me back to a safer spot. "Daughter, let's go home. This place is bad luck." I nodded and left with him. Orson was beaten to his knees, wiping the blood from his mouth. He stared in my direction. "Eulalia, don't you dare leave." I ignored him. I didn't look back. In the past, whenever he was reprimanded by the old master for his mistakes, I would feel so distressed that I'd cry. But today, I felt nothing. I didn't even want to look at him. Orson froze for a few seconds. When he realized what was happening, all the color drained from his face. He finally understood. When I said I wanted a divorce, I wasn't just saying it. I truly didn't want him anymore. Chapter 9. Before I left the old residence, Old Master Han called me to a stop. He handed me an agreement. "In this matter, that brat is indeed at fault first. If you want a divorce, I won't stop you. But the Han family has few descendants. I hope you can give birth to this child." I flipped through the contract. In black and white, it clearly stated that no matter who obtained custody, the Han family would pay 100 million in child support every year. He knew I was short on money. Because of the public backlash, people in the industry avoided me like the plague. Several endorsement deals were terminated one after another, and brands demanded compensation. I was buried in massive debt. When I got home, my father took out a tin box from under the bed. Inside was all his savings, crumpled bills and coins, every bit he had. He said, "Don't be afraid, daughter. Dad will support you." Seeing his wrinkled, calloused hands, my eyes welled up. My mother died from complications during childbirth. This old man had been both father and mother, raising me on his own. When I was 8, classmates mocked me for having a mother who gave birth to me but didn't raise me. My dad rushed into the classroom, grabbed their ears, and taught them a lesson. "Who are you calling that? My daughter may not have a mother, but she has me. If you keep talking nonsense, I won't hold back, even if you're kids." When I was 13, I got my first period and stained the bedsheets. My dad went to the supermarket to buy sanitary pads for me, then asked a neighbor auntie to teach me how to use them. I was embarrassed and scared, but he told me, "This is normal. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Daughter, congratulations, you've grown up." When I was 17, I applied to a performing arts program. The tuition was expensive. After working at construction sites during the day, my dad delivered food at night, sleeping only 4 hours a day. When I found out, he even apologized to me. "Daughter, it's because your dad isn't capable enough. But no matter how poor we are, I'll make sure you finish university." Maybe fate had been kind to me at times. After graduation, I met Laura. She brought me into the industry. We fought for resources step by step, and after 5 years of hard work, I finally won the Best Actress award. That was the first time my dad stepped into a cinema. He waved a light stick like an excited kid, sitting in the audience, grinning from ear to ear. "Hee hee, see that? That's my daughter up there, the Best Actress." There were too many moments like these, including now. My career was ruined, my marriage broken, I was almost driven to a dead end. My father held my hand and said solemnly, "No matter what decision you make, Dad supports you. If you want to keep the baby, I'll work hard and be a good grandfather. If you want to end the pregnancy and get a divorce, I'll go with you to find a lawyer and file a lawsuit." My father had always been incredibly, unbelievably good to me. I cried uncontrollably. He hurriedly wiped my tears, coaxing me just like when I was a child. "Don't cry. Dad will always be your strongest support." But he was already old. Years of overwork had taken a toll on his health. He had heart problems. I didn't want him worrying about me anymore. And when I scheduled the abortion, I had gone through a series of medical examinations. The doctor said my body wasn't in good condition. If I terminated this pregnancy, I might never be able to conceive again. After thinking it over for a long time, I decided to sign that agreement. I would keep the child. At the same time, I pulled myself together and began preparing for the divorce. But after searching through all the lawyers in a city, not a single one dared to take my case. Because Orson had already made it clear. Just when I was about to give up, a man came to my door on his own. He wore a trench coat, tall and slender, with cold, refined features. For some reason, he looked familiar. "May I ask who you are?" He handed me a business card and introduced himself. "Miss. Hello, I'm Patrick." Patrick. The name sounded familiar. Oh, I remembered. After the Azure Dragon Film Festival ended, there had been a fan meet and greet. Patrick had held my debut photo album, saying that an elder in his family liked me very much and asked him to get my autograph. I had signed it. I didn't expect to see him again, so I joked, "Are you here for another autograph today?" Patrick shook his head. No. He lowered his gaze to look at me. His dark eyes were like a deep abyss. His emotions unreadable. "I'm here to help you get a divorce." Chapter 10. The continuous rain of the past few days suddenly stopped. A streak of golden sunlight broke through the thick clouds, shining down on Patrick. For no reason, a line of poetry came to my mind. When the mountains and rivers seem to leave no path ahead, beyond the willows and blossoms lies another village. And indeed, that was the case. I looked into Patrick's background, a graduate from a prestigious university, with an undefeated record in divorce cases. Most importantly, he had no ties to wealthy families. He wasn't under Orson's influence. He spoke in a professional tone. "Eulalia, please prepare evidence as soon as possible, proof that your relationship has broken down, and evidence of the other party's wrongdoing." I packaged the video of the car kiss along with screenshots of Elizabeth's post and sent them to Patrick. Court proceedings would take time. Recently, my morning sickness had been quite severe. The smell of car exhaust in the city made me uncomfortable. To help me rest and focus on the pregnancy, my father brought me back to our hometown. South City in late autumn was like a painting. Gray bricks and dark tiles. Small bridges over flowing water. Walking along the stone-paved path, at the end of the alley stood an old Western-style house. We hadn't been back for a long time. Dust had accumulated inside. Worried that I might cough from it, my father hurriedly pushed me outside. With nothing to do, I stood in the courtyard, quietly taking in the scenery. The sunset in the small town was even more breathtaking than in the city. Golden light scattered across the ground, blending into the fading glow of dusk. The roadside sweet osmanthus filled the air with fragrance, and pomegranates hung heavy on the branches, bending them under their weight. The door of the neighboring house creaked open. Patrick stepped out. He was dressed in casual homewear, his bangs falling slightly over his long eyelashes. Alongside his usual cool demeanor, there was a touch of softness. When he saw me, he wasn't surprised at all. He greeted me naturally. "We meet again, Eulalia." I froze for a second, then stammered, "What a coincidence, you live here too." Patrick shook the keys in his hand and smiled as he denied it. "Not too busy lately. I took annual leave and came here for a trip." "Not busy?" "The last time I went to his law firm to sign the authorization papers, I overheard his subordinates chatting in the break room. Lawyer Patrick has more than a dozen cases on his plate, and he still has the energy to take on Eulalia's case? Working nonstop 24 hours a day, he's risking his life. You don't get it. That's the power of admiration." I opened my mouth, my question still unspoken, when a sharp vibration cut through the moment. Patrick's phone rang. Someone was consulting him about work. He answered patiently, explaining everything in detail, afraid I might get bored waiting. He peeled an orange and handed it to me. I felt too awkward to refuse, so I stuffed it all into my mouth. The sweet and tangy juice burst across my tongue. After the call ended, Patrick glanced at me casually. Seeing my puffed cheeks, he couldn't help but chuckle. "So cute, like a little hamster." My face flushed instantly. He seemed to realize the atmosphere had become a bit ambiguous. Clearing his throat, he casually changed the subject. "Your case, the lawsuit has already been submitted. The hearing should be in about 3 months. I replied in a very soft voice. "Has your soon-to-be ex-husband contacted you recently?" No. I had already blocked Orson everywhere. Patrick nodded and reminded me. After you left the city, he seems quite anxious, asking around everywhere about your whereabouts. I curled my lips slightly but said nothing. There was no way Orson would be anxious over me. He was probably rekindling things with Elizabeth. Lost in their own world, the sky gradually darkened, and the scent of home-cooked meals drifted through the air from every household. My father leaned out of the window and called me home for dinner. "Daughter, the chicken soup's getting cold." Patrick tactfully turned to head back inside. After only a few steps, his phone rang again. He didn't even have time to say goodbye, only giving me an apologetic look. As the door opened, I caught a glimpse of a cold takeout box sitting on the table. Was that his dinner? I actually wanted to ask him if he was so busy. Why come all the way to South City for a vacation? But after hesitating, I didn't ask, not wanting to interrupt his call. I typed a message on my phone and showed it to him through the window. "Lawyer Patrick, when you're done, would you like to try my dad's cooking?" Patrick raised an eyebrow and smiled. Chapter 11. I stayed in South City for nearly 3 months. Life here moved at a slow pace. During the day, I would brew a pot of tea and curl up in the attic, reading and writing until sunset. In the evening, I would take a walk with my dad, then listen to a piece of Pink Shoe, falling asleep to the soft, lilting local dialect. Patrick would visit occasionally, always polite and well-mannered. My dad liked him quite a bit and often invited him to stay for meals. He rented the house next door. Our balconies were just a short distance apart. In the later stages of my pregnancy, I started waking up frequently at night. After a few times, I couldn't fall back asleep, so I would wrap myself in a coat and sit in the rocking chair on the balcony, staring into space. As the end of the year approached, red lanterns were hung all along the streets and alleys. From across the railing, Patrick handed me a candied hawthorn stick. "It's sweet. Try it." I had already grown used to accepting his small gestures. Without refusing, I bit into one of the glossy, sugar-coated hawthorns before I could even taste it. I heard him say, "I'm leaving." My chewing paused. I looked up at him. I had to admit, Patrick was very handsome, even after seeing so many good-looking men in the industry. His face still stood out. The silver moonlight fell over him, cold and quiet, as if dusted with snow. Behind his thin lenses, a pair of beautiful, slightly upturned eyes narrowed gently, like they held fragments of starlight. Someone like him could easily stir a girl's heart. I looked away and spoke slowly. "All right, have a safe trip." Patrick lowered his gaze and asked softly, "You're not going to ask where I'm going?" "HM? The court hearing is next week. I'm going back to the firm to prepare." I paused slightly. So much time had already passed. I hadn't thought about Orson for a long while. Maybe letting go and forgetting wasn't as difficult as I once imagined. My moment of distraction made Patrick misunderstand. He thought I was worried about losing the case. To cheer me up, he somehow brought out 2 boxes of fireworks. Behind the house was a small river, and across the bridge was an open space. I stood on the balcony, watching Patrick light them in the distance. He waved at me and called out with a smile, "Eulalia, wishing you a happy divorce in advance and a new beginning." The rest of his words were drowned out by a loud explosion. Brilliant fireworks bloomed across the ink-dark sky, dazzling and overwhelming in their beauty. Patrick walked toward me through the glow, stopping downstairs and holding up his phone so I could see the words on the screen. "For you, I will never lose a case." A soft smile lifted my lips. The candied hawthorn in my mouth tasted so sweet. After the fireworks faded, I had the best sleep I'd had in a long time. The next morning, Patrick was already gone. My dad had gone to the market to buy groceries, leaving the courtyard gate open. A few neighborhood kids caught the scent of winter sweet blossoms and lingered outside. Reluctant to leave, I smiled and waved them in, brought out some chairs, and we sat under the tree chatting. From Doraemon to Cardcaptor Sakura, then from Boonie Bears to Peppa Pig, we talked about everything. They stared at my belly and asked whether it was a little brother or sister. I honestly said I didn't know. Suddenly, one of the kids pointed behind me and raised his voice. "Big sister, that big brother is looking at you." I followed the direction of his finger. A familiar figure entered my sight. Orson stood at the courtyard gate, staring at me for a very, very long time. So long that his eyes had turned red. Only then did he speak. his voice hoarse. Eulalia. I finally found you. Chapter 12. I hadn't expected Orson to come all the way here. Lara said he had been searching for me like crazy. That wasn't like him at all, proud as he was. He had never lowered himself for me. But this time, something seemed different. After the children left, only Orson and I remained in the courtyard. He stopped in front of me and raised his hand, as if wanting to touch my belly. It's gotten so big. Has the baby been troubling you? I took a step back, avoiding his touch. The movement clearly hurt him. His hand froze midair, trembling slightly. After a long pause, I finally heard him say, "After you left, I missed you." He looked straight at me, the emotion in his eyes almost spilling over as he called my name gently. Eulalia. It took me 3 months to finally understand something. The person I love isn't Elizabeth. It's you. I didn't know what had caused the sudden change in him, but the statement was so absurd that I couldn't help but question it. You love me? Orson said he loved me. How ridiculous. Would someone who loved me treat me as a substitute for another woman? Neglect me for 3 years after marriage? Kiss another woman in a car when I was about to tell him I was pregnant? Destroy my career just to protect her reputation? This was his version of love. Disgusting. That thought crossed my mind, and I actually threw up. Orson didn't dodge. The pampered young heir didn't care about the mess or the smell. He bent down and gently patted my back. You don't believe me, do you? I admit, in the beginning, I married you because you looked like Elizabeth. I used you to provoke her, to force her to come back and reconcile, but when she really returned to my side, I wasn't happy at all. During the days when you asked for a divorce and disappeared, I couldn't sleep at night. The moment I closed my eyes, all I could see was you. That's when I realized what I felt for Elizabeth was just obsession. What I feel for you is love. The evening breeze lifted the strands of hair on his forehead. In his clear eyes, my mocking expression was reflected perfectly. For a brief moment, he looked lost. He grabbed my hand tightly. Wife, don't look at me like that. Give me one more chance. Let's start over. All right? There's a kind of person in this world who is always obsessed with what they've lost, what they never obtained, what belongs to the past. Those things always seem the most perfect. Orson was exactly that kind of person. In truth, he didn't really love me, nor did he truly love Elizabeth. He only loved himself. Only loss made him cling so desperately. I let out a cold laugh and scolded him. Orson, stop being pathetic. You've received the court notice, haven't you? Make sure you show up on time. Now, get out of my house. It was the first time I had ever spoken to him so harshly. His pupils trembled violently. Tears suddenly fell, landing on the back of my hand, burning hot. I wiped them away in disgust and turned to go inside. As I closed the door, Orson braced himself against the doorframe. His hand was caught, turning bruised and purple. I was startled. Are you crazy? He endured the pain, veins bulging on his forehead, cold sweat dripping down, and asked word by word, "What do I have to do for you to withdraw the lawsuit?" Orson was asking me how he could make me cancel the divorce. I didn't answer. In truth, I had already given him a chance. On the day of the scheduled abortion, in that Maybach, I gave him 3 conditions, asking him to choose between Elizabeth and me. But unfortunately, he chose her. He abandoned me. Orson seemed to recall that moment as well. Regret flashed across his face as he hurried to make amends. Give me 1 day. I'll prove it to you. Prove how much you love me. Unfortunately, it was too late. Chapter 13. After my dad got home, he learned that Orson had come by. The little old man who had been smiling and putting food into my bowl suddenly darkened his expression. He still has the nerve to show up? He poured himself a glass of baijiu and, as he drank, began criticizing Orson, my daughter, whom I've cherished all my life. After marrying him, she hasn't enjoyed a single blessing, only suffered grievances. What kind of man is he? Don't let me see him again, or I'll beat him every time. My dad was emotional, standing up for me. I tried to calm him down. Dad, you can scold him all you want, but your heart isn't in good condition. Drink less. I know my limits. What about you, daughter? What are your plans after the divorce? I teased him on purpose. Take the child support and bring you and the baby traveling around the world. As expected. My dad laughed, but as he laughed, he choked on his drink. He clutched his chest and took a few minutes to recover. Then said earnestly, I'm getting old. I can't stay with you forever. Lately, I've even been dreaming about your mom. She blames me for not protecting you well. That lawyer Patrick who's been staying next door recently, he seems like a good man. I think he's more reliable than that Han guy. He had probably drunk too much. My dad started rambling, the topic drifting further and further off. I quickly interrupted him, cleaned up the dishes, and hurried back to my room. I had just lain down when my phone vibrated. Laura sent me a message. Check the trending topics. Elizabeth is done for. I opened it. The flood of updates made my mind freeze for a moment. First, Orson tagged me. He had never used social media before. Yet just minutes ago, he created an account and publicly acknowledged our relationship. Legally married. The child is mine. At actress Eulalia. Then, the Han Group's official website issued a clarification under the previous fabricated statement. After a business engagement, Mr. Han escorted Miss Elizabeth home. She was intoxicated and not fully conscious. Mr. Han pushed her away shortly after. There was no passionate kissing. The prayer beads are merely a similar design. Please refrain from spreading rumors. The CEO's wife would be upset. I couldn't help but sneer. The Han Group's PR team was truly skilled at whitewashing. In just a few sentences, they wiped away the accusation of Orson's infidelity during marriage. The comments section exploded. Plot twist after plot twist, my brain's about to crash. Elizabeth's publicity stunt. Throwing herself at him, truly shameless. So Eulalia's marriage certificate wasn't fake? I thought she was clout chasing. Am I the only one wondering why they only clarified now? Mr. Han has no sense of responsibility. Obviously forced. Looks like Elizabeth threatened that woman Eulalia's position. Everyone knows the overrated best actress schemed her way into his bed back then. Elizabeth is the true love. True love isn't a crime. Delusional fans. Stop calling her overrated. The judges were fair, and no matter how Eulalia got married, she's the legal wife now. Your idol knew he was married and still chased him. She can't wash that clean. Agreed. Mistresses and their fans. Get out of the entertainment industry. Elizabeth's personal page quickly collapsed under the backlash. Tens of thousands of comments flooded in, all condemning her. Even her fans couldn't keep up with controlling the narrative, and she had no choice but to turn off comments. But online attacks weren't enough. Outraged netizens began digging into her past during her time studying acting abroad. Smoking, drinking, failing classes, casual hookups. Even a former assistant came forward with real-name accusations of tax evasion. The situation escalated. Authorities stepped in to investigate. The industry quietly blacklisted her. Endorsements were terminated one after another. Variety shows and dramas erased her presence overnight. At this point, Elizabeth's career was essentially over. In this storm, I was the one who benefited. Laura said that in just half an hour, her inbox had been flooded with business offers. Even films for my post-pregnancy comeback were already being discussed. She cried with joy. You finally made it through. Eulalia. My nose stung. The road here had truly not been easy. At that moment, a voice message came through on WeChat. It was from Patrick. I tapped to play it. The background noise on his end was chaotic. He was clearly still busy. Patrick said, "Look outside." I lifted my head. In the vast night sky, several drones hovered. Points of light gathered together, forming a line of words. Congratulations, Eulalia. Keep shining in the field you love. Chapter 14. After thanking Patrick, fireworks suddenly burst outside the window. The sound of firecrackers rose one after another. Only then did it hit me. It was New Year's Eve. I should be staying up with my dad. Excited, I hurried downstairs, wanting to tell him, "Old man, stop worrying. Your daughter's career is back on track. I'll keep acting, keep earning money, and stay by your side." But just as I reached the corner of the stairs, someone blocked my way. It was Elizabeth. I stepped back instinctively, alert. My eyes darted around, searching for my dad. The TV in the living room was playing the Spring Festival Gala, and a freshly poured glass of baijiu sat untouched on the coffee table. That meant my dad was home. But Elizabeth had barged in, there was no way he wouldn't know. And if he knew, how could he not appear? A sudden sense of dread rose in my chest. Where's my dad? Elizabeth let out a light laugh. At the door. I looked outside through the floor-to-ceiling window. My legs went weak, I nearly collapsed to my knees. My dad lay stiff in the snow. It's not my fault, Elizabeth said lightly. Your dad had a bad temper. I just said a few things about you. And he clutched his chest and collapsed. I wasn't sure if I heard her words or not. I remembered what my dad had said at the dinner table. He talked about my mom, about Patrick, about Orson, but never about himself. Had he already known something was wrong with his body? How had I not noticed? And I had even hidden in my room because I found him nagging. Regret and guilt surged over me like a tidal wave, almost drowning me. I didn't have time to think. Instinctively, I pulled out my phone and called for emergency services. Seeing my panic and pain, Elizabeth's smile grew even brighter. Eulalia, you ruined my career, took Orson away from me, and made my life miserable. So in return, I'll let you taste what it feels like to lose the person you love most. She did it on purpose. She deliberately provoked my dad, triggering his condition. In that instant, I lost all reason. I grabbed her head and slammed it against the wall, again and again, with all my strength. Elizabeth screamed in pain, her hair disheveled. Like a madwoman, in the struggle, she shoved me hard. I lost my grip on the railing and fell down the stairs. The violent impact left me completely dazed. When I came to, my white dress was already soaked red with blood. A sharp, tearing pain spread through my abdomen. The wail of an ambulance siren came from outside. Medical staff rushed in, lifted me onto a stretcher, asking how I felt. I couldn't speak. I stared fixedly at the doorway. Another group of rescuers was kneeling in the snow, performing CPR on my dad. Racing against time. He'll be fine. He has to be fine. He'll live a long life. He'll stay with me forever. I kept repeating those thoughts to myself, until the rescuers exchanged a glance, their expressions heavy, and slowly shook their heads. I forced myself up and screamed hoarsely. Why did you stop? Save my dad, please. Save him. I'm sorry. Your father suffered a heart attack. We did everything we could. I watched helplessly as the lively old man who had always been full of energy was placed into a body bag, while I was pushed into the emergency room. The lights on the hospital ceiling were blinding, so bright that tears streamed down my face. I could barely feel the physical pain anymore, only my heart. It felt like it was being torn apart again and again. A nurse shouted, "Severe hemorrhaging, signs of premature labor, contact her family immediately." In the last moment before my consciousness faded, I thought, family? I didn't have any family left. On a night meant for reunion, I lost the person who loved me most, my father. Chapter 15. When the hospital's call came, Orson was in a meeting. After the clarification was released, public opinion surged again, and the stock market fluctuated. The board of directors demanded an explanation. He tugged at his tie, irritated, thinking to himself, these old men were just delaying him from getting his wife back. His secretary rushed into the meeting room. Mr. Hahn, something has happened to your wife. Orson froze. The pen slipped from his fingers and fell to the ground. He booked the nearest flight back to South City, then rushed into the hospital at top speed, a fine layer of sweat forming on his forehead. The red surgical light above the operating room felt like an invisible hand, gripping his throat tightly, almost suffocating him. Time dragged on endlessly. Orson neither ate nor drank, standing guard outside the operating room without leaving for even a step. 3 hours later, the door opened. The doctor stepped out, removing his mask. Mr. Hahn, the child is safe, but your wife's bleeding cannot be controlled, and her will to live is very weak. She may. Orson suddenly looked up. His throat felt blocked, painful and tight. After a long pause, he managed to say, "Go on." His voice trembled slightly. "She may not make it through tonight." His eyes instantly turned red. Overwhelming panic wrapped around him like an airtight net, trapping him completely. Orson slowly slid down the wall and collapsed onto the floor, as if a dull blade were grinding into his flesh, pain spreading through his entire body. He had only just come to understand his feelings, and now she was about to leave him? No, he wouldn't allow it. Get the best specialists. Use the best medicine. If you can't save her, your career ends here. The doctor didn't dare offend him and quickly gathered the team to discuss further plans. When old Master Han arrived, the empty corridor outside the emergency room held only Orson. He sat on the cold tiles, his head buried deeply in his arms, lifeless. When you had her, you didn't cherish her. The old man sighed. Only when you're about to lose her do you regret it. Orson Han let out a self-mocking laugh. It was true. For 3 years of marriage, he had never cherished Eulalia. When she broke her leg filming an action scene, she cried as she called him. He responded coldly. Have your assistant take you to the hospital. You don't need to tell me about such trivial matters in the future. But when Elizabeth merely scraped her skin, he rushed to the set in fury. Standing up for her, Eulalia didn't know. After returning home, she still foolishly acted spoiled with him. Hubby, it hurts so much. Can you at least show some concern? He didn't even lift his eyelids. Can concern stop the pain? No, but I want to hear it. He cut her off directly. Sorry, I can't do that. Yet he would turn around and ask Elizabeth gently, if it hurts, tell me, I'll stay with you. This kind of cruel contrast happened almost every day. Later, it seemed Eulalia had finally gathered enough disappointment. She stopped taking the initiative to reach out to him. He should have felt relieved. But instead, his heart suddenly felt empty. He would often lose focus during meetings, wanting to go home to see Eulalia. There were even times he mistook Elizabeth for her. At first, Orson thought it was just a withdrawal reaction and didn't pay it much attention, until that video of the car kiss went viral. Eulalia slapped him and called him a bastard. His heart felt like it had been pierced by needles. A dense, lingering pain spreading through him. For reasons he couldn't explain, he didn't want a divorce, and he certainly wouldn't allow her to abort their child. During the months Eulalia disappeared, Orson hadn't had a single good night's sleep. He would wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing in panic. Elizabeth came to him and demanded, Orson, what kind of spell did she put on you? I've already come back to you. Why are you still acting like a madman, chasing after a substitute? If you keep this up, then we're over. The more she spoke, the more hysterical she became. Orson watched her in silence, and suddenly felt an overwhelming sense of disgust. How had he ever mistaken Eulalia for Elizabeth? Aside from a slight resemblance, their personalities were completely different. Eulalia was gentle, considerate, emotionally steady. Elizabeth was willful, arrogant, reckless. He had had enough. Orson's mother had died early, and his father was always busy with work, neglecting him. No one had ever taught him what love was. No one had taught him how to recognize an unhealthy relationship. But that day, he finally understood. He had mistaken unwillingness to let go for true love. And in doing so, he had missed the person he should have cherished the most. Chapter 16. At 4 in the morning, the hospital corridor was cold and deserted. Old Master Han had already left. Orson remained in the same position, sitting on the floor without moving. A passing auntie saw him and felt sorry, handing him a tissue and gently comforting him. Young man, it's okay, don't cry. Orson touched his face. It was wet. Only then did he realize he was crying. My daughter also had premature labor and severe hemorrhaging. She was issued a critical condition notice. I had no other choice. So I went to Chixia Temple to pray for her. Maybe I was lucky. When I came back, she gradually regained consciousness. You see, people always need something to hold on to. So don't lose hope. Maybe she'll wake up in the next second. The speaker meant nothing by it, but the listener took it to heart. Orson supported himself against the wall and slowly stood up. He thanked her, then walked out of the hospital in a daze. When a person is powerless, they can only turn to other means to hope for a miracle, such as faith. At that hour, Chixia Temple was already closed. A black Maybach was parked by the roadside. Orson stepped out, looking at the solemn path leading to the sacred grounds. It seemed close, but in truth, it was far beyond reach. Without hesitation, he bent his knees and knelt down, bowing in the most devout manner, praying and seeking blessings. The cold wind howled, chilling him to the bone. Fine snow fell onto his face, melting like tears. He stood up, stepped forward, then knelt again, one step, one bow, all the way to the temple gates. The monk on duty heard the commotion and greeted him with a respectful gesture. "Sir, if you wish to pray, please come back after dawn." Orson lowered his gaze, remaining kneeling. "I can't wait. Please make an exception and let me ask for a safety talisman." The two remained in a standoff. Moved by his determination and sincerity, the monk finally let him in. A pure sanctuary, 3 sticks of incense. Orson pressed his hands together, silent and reverent, murmuring softly, "I pray for the protection of the heavens. I ask for nothing else, only that my wife overcomes this hardship." The prayer flags fluttered, as if responding. By the time he received the blessed safety talisman, dawn had already broken. Orson held it carefully in his hands and rushed back to the hospital. Perhaps the heavens truly heard his plea. 2 hours later, the light above the emergency room turned off. The doctor, relieved, informed him, "Mr. Hahn, congratulations. Your wife's bleeding has stopped. She is now out of danger." Eulalia was transferred to a regular ward, but she hadn't woken up yet. Orson took out the talisman and gently placed it into her hand. "Wife, don't sleep anymore. Open your eyes and look at me." Eulalia's eyelashes trembled slightly. She had a long dream. In the dream, she never drank that drugged champagne. Naturally, she never met Orson. She focused on acting and earning money, leaving love behind. Whenever she had time, she took her father for medical checkups, traveled the world with him. Every year on her birthday, she made only one wish: "May my dad live a long life." But a voice kept calling her from somewhere far away. "Wife, please, wake up. Wife." Her eyelashes fluttered more intensely, as if rising from deep water. All the restraints on her body were released. She slowly opened her eyes. She saw Orson's face. She saw the stark white ceiling of the hospital. Only then did she realize it had all been a dream. Her father would never live to 100 years old. Chapter 17. After I woke up, I did 2 things. First, I filed a lawsuit against Elizabeth for attempted murder. There were surveillance cameras installed at my front door, which clearly recorded everything that happened that day. The doorbell rang. My father went to open the door. Hearing Elizabeth insult me, he got agitated and argued with her. Not long after, he clutched his chest and collapsed. Elizabeth didn't help him. She even laughed so hard she couldn't stand straight. After I submitted the footage to the police, Elizabeth finally became afraid. She came to the hospital to find me, hoping to settle with compensation. I grabbed the water cup on the table and threw it at her. "Dream on. I would make sure she rotted in prison." She was frightened by the fury in my eyes and shrank behind Orson, crying. She tugged at his sleeve. "Orson, for the sake of our past, please help me plead for leniency. I really don't want to go to prison." Orson's gaze shifted slightly. After all, she was his unforgettable first love. Even if he no longer loved her, he didn't wish for her to end up too miserably. Just as he was about to speak, I took out the safety talisman from beneath my pillow. "Orson, this is what you prayed for me the night I gave birth." Rumors spread that the ascetic-like man had stepped down from his pedestal, standing in endless wind and snow, bowing step by step to pray for a safety talisman for me. The media described it as love as deep as the sea. I raised my head and asked him, "But do you know why I had premature labor and severe hemorrhaging?" Orson shook his head. I smiled faintly and told him the truth in a calm voice. "Because the woman you love pushed me down the stairs. My child and I almost died on the operating table. Now, do you still want to ask me to let her go?" Elizabeth's face turned visibly pale with terror as she tried to defend herself. "Orson, no, that's not." She was shoved to the ground. Orson shook off her hand, straightened his sleeve with clear disgust, and personally called the police, sending her to prison. More than 10 years of imprisonment. I imagined that the rest of her life in there would be, well, taken care of. Second, I arranged my father's funeral. The man who had once stood tall was now reduced to a small box. On the day of the burial, Patrick came to pay his respects. I heard that during the days I was unconscious in the hospital, he had tried to visit me in the obstetrics ward, but was stopped by Orson's security. Now, dressed in a black coat, he lowered his head as he entered the morning hall and placed a bouquet of white chrysanthemums before the portrait. We looked at each other in silence for a few seconds. His voice was heavy. My condolences. Just those two simple words easily broke through all my suppressed emotions. I thought of those months in South City, my dad going to the market early in the morning, always asking me what I wanted to eat before leaving. Passing by next door, he would greet Patrick too, asking if he had any dietary preferences. Between Patrick and me, there were too many memories tied to my dad. The tears I had held back for so many days finally burst free, falling like beads from a broken string. I had never imagined that one day I would cry so hysterically. Patrick sat beside me quietly, letting me cry. His hand rested on my shoulder, trying to gently pat my back. But suddenly, I was pulled into another pair of arms. Orson wrapped an arm around my waist, looking at Patrick with hostility. "Don't touch my wife." His tone was a warning. Patrick raised an eyebrow and corrected him calmly. "Mr. Hahn, both of us know that Eulalia is already in the process of divorce proceedings. In other words, stop calling her your wife." "So what?" Orson's grip on my waist tightened. "As long as the judgment hasn't been issued, she is still my wife." He pulled me away from the morning hall in large strides. I struggled the entire way, but he only held me tighter. "You haven't finished your postpartum recovery. Don't cry anymore, all right?" In a secluded corner, his fingers brushed the corners of my eyes, gently wiping away my tears. "Your eyes will hurt." I slapped his hand away, my throat tight and hoarse. "The lawyer is right. Don't call me that anymore. And please leave now. My father and I, neither of us wants to see you." My dad had once said if he ever saw Orson again, he would beat him every time. He must have truly hated him. Orson's hand dropped to his side, clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. Panic and helplessness spread clearly across his eyes. "Eulalia, don't." I didn't listen any further. I turned back, knelt before the memorial. Whatever he wanted to say had nothing to do with me anymore. Chapter 18. On the 7th day after my dad passed away, the divorce case went to trial. In the courthouse waiting room, Patrick sat down with a stack of documents in his arms. Dark circles lined his eyes. He must have prepared thoroughly. He spoke with certainty. "Eulalia, we won't lose." I believed him. Perhaps even my dad in heaven was watching over me. The case went smoothly. When the judge announced the divorce verdict in court, I couldn't come back to my senses for a long time. 3 years of marriage, gone. Just like that. From now on, my life would set sail again. Patrick gave me a gentlemanly hug. "Eulalia, you're free." I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had shown in those dark days. After leaving the courthouse, I went to the cemetery to burn offerings for my dad. A familiar figure followed behind me the entire time. From the moment the divorce judgment was issued, the light in Orson's eyes had disappeared, like a dog abandoned by its owner. He looked pitifully humble. I didn't want to care about him. I crouched down and gently touched the black and white photo of my dad. Casually, I told him about my recent life. "Dad, I got divorced. I also got custody of the child. Don't you think I struck a great deal? The Hahn family couldn't win custody, and they still have to pay $100 million every year in child support. Oh, right, I'm joining a new film set next month. My career and life are both going smoothly now, so don't worry about me." As I spoke, my vision began to blur. Only then did I realize I was crying again. There's a saying, losing a loved one is a lifetime of dampness. The snow of early spring slowly melted, and long-awaited sunlight poured down, warming my body. I stood up and turned to leave. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw, a few meters away, Orson was kneeling on the ground, facing my dad's grave, knocking his head heavily against the ground. He was making up for the regret of not being allowed into the mourning hall on the day of the funeral. His skin scraped against the hard stone path, blood seeping from his temple. As I passed by him, he suddenly grabbed my wrist, his voice trembling. "Don't divorce me, the child needs a father." It sounded like meaningless nonsense. The judgment had already been made. We both knew. Everything was settled. There was no turning back. From his palm, I slowly withdrew my hand. "There's no need. I can raise the child without you." Orson stood there, stunned, watching me. I didn't hesitate. I walked away. 3 months later, my post-pregnancy comeback film wrapped filming. During the promotional tour, there was a fan QA session. These were fans who had supported me through the years, who had witnessed everything I had gone through. Among the crowd, a young girl held up a microphone and asked, "Eulalia, your journey hasn't been easy. Aside from directors who recognized your talent, is there anyone you're especially grateful to?" I thought for a moment before answering. Yes, there are two people. The first is my father. The second is my divorce lawyer. Without my dad, there would be no Eulalia who could pursue her dreams without distraction. Without Patrick, there would be no Eulalia who broke free from her cage and was reborn. The young girl nodded slightly. "We're also very happy for you. The fan club prepared a gift overnight. Eulalia, happy divorce." As soon as she finished speaking, the big screen behind me suddenly began playing a video. It was a montage of all the roles I had played since my debut. I watched with tears in my eyes, but I didn't expect. The fans had saved the final scene for my dad. In the video, he sat in the audience, waving a light stick, proudly shouting, "Hee hee, see that? That's my daughter up there, the best actress." In just a few months, everything had changed. I turned away to wipe my tears, but unintentionally, I caught sight of the last row. In a quiet, unnoticed corner, Patrick stood there, holding a small sign, quietly watching me. Beside him was an empty seat. I knew it was reserved for my dad. The old man had come to see me too. I bowed deeply toward the audience, and in my heart, I said, "Thank you, my supporters. May I finally break free from suffering from this day on."